This is CBC Here and Now.
So this has been the most terrible tragedy since the last 40 years in the fishing sector.
The bodies and survivors from the Spanish fishing vessel that sank off Newfoundland are heading home.
How that country is dealing with the tragedy.
One town on the Avalon Peninsula wants to be a trailblazer in climate change adaptation.
I wanted to understand what are the flooding risks in this town.
You don't want to wait till the situation gets worse.
We're going to see more frequent, more intense rainfall events.
That's coming up on Here and Now.
Quiet and chilly day on tap for tomorrow. Next weathermaker moves in, bringing more rain and wind for parts of the province.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Peter Cowan.
And I'm Carolyn Stokes. Those stories in just a moment. But first, we begin on the south coast of Labrador. That's where the search for a missing snowmobiler has turned into a recovery mission. The man was last seen Friday night heading to a cabin near Main Tickle, about 5 kilometers northwest of Cartwright. Blizzard conditions prevented crews from searching on that night. Early Saturday morning, tracks were found leading into open water. Searchers believe the driver was likely disoriented in the stormy weather. An underwater recovery team is at the scene today.
Well, the 3 survivors and the remains of 9 Spanish fishermen are on their way back home. A Spanish military plane departed St. John's not too long ago to bring them back to Galicia. The men died after their fishing vessel sank off Newfoundland on Tuesday. Chris O'Neill Yates reports.
A grim cargo. A Spanish Army Airbus will transport the remains of 9 dead fishermen across the Atlantic to their waiting families in Galicia, and 3 survivors. The Spanish ambassador to Canada was in St. John's. We are living through an intense struggle since this tragic loss, he says, calling this a tragedy for the families and for all of Spain. The survivors and the remains of the 9 men found arrived in St. John's by boat over the weekend. The Spanish government sent a psychologist, a doctor, and a nurse to treat the 3 survivors, the captain, his nephew, and another fisherman. In Galicia, Spain, grief mixed with anger poured onto the streets of the home port of the vessel as a crowd gathered on Sunday to protest. They want the Spanish government to launch a search to find the missing men. Maria Jose de Paso's father, Francisco, is one of the dozen not accounted for. With every day that passes, finding any of the bodies becomes less likely, she says. Days have passed. It's a disgrace.
But they need to know that they has been looking for them and to find them, even if they are not alive, but they need to say goodbye and to cry with people that they love.
When this plane touches down in Spain, it'll be met by family members and politicians, including the President of Spain, as the country mourns the largest loss of life in a fishing disaster in 40 years. Chris O'Neill Yates, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, after all that rain this weekend, the back half of it was fairly nice, although cold for a good chunk of the province. Let's take a look at what's going on right now. We do have a ridge of high pressure that's starting to move in. That is bringing some of that colder air stuck under this Arctic air mass. You can see some of those purples and blues as we headed through the day today, some of that colder air, and then some windy conditions as well. Now, Environment Canada has issued an extreme cold warning for all of Labrador, including the Northern Peninsula, and that's because your temperatures tonight under clear and calm, clear skies are going down to the -20s, even -39 for Lab City. That means wind chill values expected in the -40s, even -50 as you head towards Lab City, and as well as the Northern Peninsula with your wind chills into the -30s. Now that's ahead of our next weather maker. Another warm up on the way. I'll have the full forecast coming up.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, another rise in gas prices is hurting everyone's bottom line, but commuters across the province are definitely feeling the pinch. Troy Turner caught up with a commuter on the West Coast.
It's a routine he does full time. Eric Legg leaves his home in Cartierville and drives 56 kilometers to work in Stephenville Crossing. He's a licensed practical nurse there, working 12-hour shifts. By the time he drives home, another 56 kilometers, those days can stretch to 14 hours.
If you're going, you know what I mean, seven trips in 2 weeks, you're probably talking close to, you know, $170 to $200 extra over and above what, you know what I mean, what you would be using to go to work in a different environment.
Gas prices shot up again last week, this time by 1.5 cents a liter. Eric and others on the West Coast are paying more than $1.75 a liter.
I certainly am very much aware of the extra cost. And, you know, I'm speaking for myself, but I work with colleagues who commute even further than I do. And some of these are you know what I mean, new grads and probably, you know, are just starting out in life. And it's making it more difficult probably even for them than for me.
Light wonders if there's something that can be done about the prices, especially for those living in rural areas.
In order to keep rural Newfoundland alive and alive enough that you're going to, I guess, encourage people to live here, there's going to have to be some kind of an incentive put in place by your employer or by government to encourage that.
Troy Turner, CBC News, Cartierville.
Well, an update on COVID, the first numbers since Friday. 2 more people have died from COVID-19. One man over 90 and a woman in her 70s died since the last report on the virus. Both lived in the Central Health region. There are 16 people in hospital because of COVID-19. That's a slight increase since Friday. 5 are in the ICU. Now, restrictions are also being eased again today. In-home gatherings are now limited to 25 people instead of 20. Formal gatherings are no longer limited to more than 50% of a venue's capacity. Religious and cultural ceremonies are limited to 75% capacity. And fitness centers and restaurants can operate at 75% capacity, while bars and lounges will continue at 50%.
Well, a rabies vaccination clinic is being held at the DHSD building in Postville on Wednesday. Several foxes in the Nain and Hopedale areas have tested positive for rabies. Residents are being reminded to not approach any animals that are behaving strangely, and they're encouraged to have their pets immunized. Vaccination for domestic animals is free of charge and can be arranged by contacting your local public health office. Well, Premier Andrew Furey and MP Goody Hutchings have announced a $136 million plan to connect all rural households in the province to high-speed internet. $20 million is from the provincial government, and the rest, $116 million, is from the federal government's Universal Broadband Fund. It aims to connect all Canadian households to high-speed internet by 2030. In a joint press release, government says today's agreement will connect just over 60,000 households in Newfoundland and Labrador to the internet, with access to speeds of at least 50 megabits per second for downloads and 10 megabits per second for uploads. It says faster internet will help people in rural, remote, and northern communities connect with jobs and improve the economy.
With all the wind and rain across parts of the province, one town is working on a way to try and tackle climate change. Here now's Henrika Wilhelm went to Peggys Cove to see what's being done there.
There has been heavy rain and flooding in many spots across the province in the past 2 months. Peggys Cove has been spared so far, but the town is preparing with a flood mapping project.
The main thrust of this project was to try to be proactive, and I showed up. I wanted to understand what are the flooding risks in this town.
The project is in collaboration with the Civil Engineering Department at Memorial University.
We're setting up the model so that we try to find out what the current situation is on the ground, and also be able to prepare for future floods, as in run different scenarios, and then find out sections of the town that could potentially flood, and then also analyze measures that we could also put in to prevent all of these flooding.
The project analyzes infrastructure and models the effects of heavy rainfall.
They can actually run it in different points in time, to my understanding, to account for climate change. Like, we can run the same rainfall now and we can run it in 2040 or in the future and see how much more intense it is. So now that we know what flooding is like, the next step of this project is to identify a batch of of projects that we can actually do.
Leaving parts of the watershed undeveloped to help nature control flooding is one possible solution. Bigger culverts is another. Infrastructure upgrades will be key for many municipalities in the fight of climate change effects.
Province has done quite a bit relative to other jurisdictions, but it's really just the start. We have to continue to move forward because when we talk about climate change adaptation, you don't just build new infrastructure and then you're done. It's a process. So you have to constantly keep your eye on it, constantly upgrade it. And that's a lot what this project here in Peach Cove is about.
Peach says he wants Peach Cove to act as a case study for other municipalities. He's currently trying to get other towns interested in similar projects in the future. Henrike Wilhelm, CBC News, Peach Cove.
Well, in national news, the Prime Minister continues to defend the use of the Emergencies Act to end the protest in Ottawa, saying it allows the government to compel actions and prevent a resurgence of illegal activity.
Even though the blockades are lifted across border openings right now, even though things seem to be resolving very well in Ottawa, this state of emergency is not over. There continues to be real concerns about the coming days, but we will continue to evaluate every single day whether or not it is time and we are able to lift this state of emergency.
Well, police have started removing checkpoints around downtown Ottawa, and the most popular tourist area, the Byward Market, has been reopened. Over the weekend, they completed a major operation to clear protesters from the area around Parliament Building, and Ottawa residents are coming to terms with what happened.
I understand why they're frustrated, but what they did to the people of Ottawa, it's going to take a while to heal. I hope they understand that they hurt a lot of regular people.
There is still a strong police presence in the city, and a number of roadblocks remain in place. Only parliamentary staffers are being allowed into the zone immediately around Parliament Hill. Many businesses remain closed, but this is a holiday Monday in Ontario, so some may have decided to wait to reopen. Transit is operating in the area again.
Well, in this province, COVID has canceled many athletic competitions over the past 2 years. And for a sport where athletes are competing shoulder to shoulder, it's been especially challenging. Well, now these synchronized skaters from the Prince of Wales Skating Club are about to get the moment they've been waiting for. They're heading to the National Championships in Alberta this week. It's the first time these 11 to 17-year-olds will have a chance to compete against teams from across the country. The Synergy Novice and Intermediate teams are traveling to Calgary this Wednesday, with competitions set to begin on Friday, and they can't wait.
They could not be more excited, I don't think. It's been a really long 2 years for them and a lot of trials and tribulations along the way. They've been working so hard. And these are a group of skaters that have really dedicated so much of their young lives to this sport already. So this bit of excitement and finally getting to do this together as a team after all their hard work is it's just such a huge reward, and they cannot wait to go to nationals and show everyone what they can do. I think one of the biggest things that makes our teams in particular really special is just how well all of the skaters work together. It's we always say that it's 16 sets of feet and one brain. So it's really important that they're all on the same page, that they're all thinking alike, and so that's a huge skill, like the mental game. With Synchro, because much of their program is them holding each other a lot of times because of restrictions, they weren't allowed to touch, so we had to get creative. We had to spend time just working on skills and things that didn't require them holding, which is not typical of our training normally. I think it ended up working out for the better. Last season, we spent most of our time working on skills and then started training our program this year. So I think in the end, it worked out for the best, and they ended up getting some really great training over the last 2 years. It was just a little frustrating along the way at times for them not being able to train the way they're used to training.
Well, still with sports, the Newfoundland Growlers won't hit the court until later this year, but the basketball team is getting its front office ready. The team has hired former NBA player Patrick Ewing Jr. as its first ever general manager and coach. Ewing was selected 43rd in the 2008 NBA draft. The 37-year-old American spent last season as the assistant coach in Ottawa. And if his name sounds familiar, well, he's also the son of NBA Hall of Famer Patrick Ewing.
As if there wasn't enough snow and rain over the weekend, another round is on the way for parts of the province. I'll have the full forecast coming up.
This weather update is brought to you by the Healthcare Foundation Home Lottery. Order tickets now at hcfhomelottery.ca.
Ashley, this winter has felt like a roller coaster. So which way are we headed? Are we going up the ride or are we coming down? What's the plan?
Well, we're coming down tonight and then back up as we head towards midweek, unfortunately, with those mild temperatures moving back in again. Let's take a look at where we sat today as far as those temperatures go. Not too far off from where we should be this time of year, hovering around 2 degrees in St. John's, basically between 0 and 2 across the board, a little bit cooler for the Northern Peninsula, and then those temperatures in the teens, minus teens up across Labrador. Minus 17 was the afternoon high in Lab City. Now that temperature has dropped significantly down to minus 25 now as that colder air starts to move in, and the temperatures are going to continue to drop as we head through the evening hours tonight, and that is thanks to that ridge of high pressure and all of that Arctic air moving in. Now, as far as what's going to happen weather-wise, there's not a whole lot going on. You're just looking at cold and clear conditions, except windy for the most part up across Labrador, and that means that your wind chills tonight expected, particularly in Lab West, down to the mid-minus 50s. Overnight. Otherwise, not a whole lot happening. We may see a few flurries for the west coast and then some clearing skies as we get through the overnight for pretty much right across the board. Now, as we head through the day tomorrow, these cool temperatures are going to stick around as well. The winds a bit brisk in the morning for the west, about 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. Then the winds will ease as the day goes on. But overall, staying into the minus double digits, cooler for the Northern Peninsula, and then minus 20s the story for Labrador. Now, the wind chills tomorrow are going to be what we're going to talk about though, because as we see those temperatures into the minus single digits, minus double digits, wind chill values right across the board will be sitting in the minus teens. So if you do have plans outside, you're definitely going to want to bundle up. Now, out ahead of our next weather maker, special weather statement in effect. Now, from Green Bay, White Bay, Gross Moor northward to Norman Bay, Lodge Bay, you're under a special weather statement when it comes to snow. And then south of that and along southern areas of the island, this will be another bout of rainfall through the day. So let's time that out. This takes us through Tuesday morning. Again, not a whole lot happening tomorrow, but clouds will be on the increase, and then we'll start to see that snow move in late day for particularly the west coast as well as the south. Now, as we get into the early morning hours on Wednesday, this should quickly transition through to rain, which looks like it should be heavy at times again for the west and south. Northern Peninsula, mainly snow. However, you may see a quick changeover to, or rather a period or two, change over to either showers or drizzle. Now, temperatures are going to climb right back up again, anywhere from 4 to 7 degrees across the board. So expect those periods of rain. Also some windy conditions through the day on Wednesday. And as far as those snowfall totals go, looks like we could see another 30 to 40 centimeters for southeastern Labrador and the Northern Peninsula as we head through the day on Wednesday and then into Thursday. After that, we're looking at that warm-up continuing through Thursday. By Friday and Saturday, we're looking at that temperature dipping back down again below 0. Same thing for central and western Newfoundland, staying a bit unsettled for you with some flurries right through Saturday. As far as the northern, Labrador goes, you're looking at your temperatures dipping on Friday to the minus 20s. And then same thing for western Labrador with some pretty nice start to the weekend with some sunshine. Take a look at this photo. This hike around Grand Falls. Hayward shared this photo with us, and if you have any weather photos that you would like to share with us, send them to nophotos@cbc.ca.
Oh, that is beautiful. Well, there's a new venue in Gander Bay, perfect for pandemic-friendly fun. It's for those looking to enjoy more outdoor activities, and it's right next to the community school.
Yep, every day kids scramble across the road to lace up their skates and hit the ice. The outdoor rink has boards, nighttime lights, even ads, and everyone owns a small piece of it.
3 years ago, this was nothing but was alders and trees, and we cleared the land. Over 400 loads of backfill put in here, and then it kind of sat for a couple of years with COVID. And anyway, this summer we started, and well, here it is. When we were building it, we said, you know, we need to get ownership. We need people to own this. So we had young kids from 8 years old, and people were up to 80 years old here helping. They were wheeling wheelbarrows and bringing lumber and doing everything as we were building. Right, so now everyone owns it. It was our idea, but the community owns it.
Well, this is my first day out here.
This is your very first day. What do you think? Tell me what you think about it.
Well, I'm enjoying it out here. It's really good.
It's really good?
Yep. I find with the rink, it's fun, and I almost be here every day. The hardest thing, so falling down, and once I fell down and I got a big like black mark on my knee. Almost every single day I use it.
Almost every single day. But shouldn't you guys be in school? I thought school was open today.
Yeah, we got out. Hey. Yeah, we left 1:30 to be here.
It's rewarding. It's all worthwhile. This is where you live. This is your community. You should be proud of it. And you need stuff to make it a community. You need stuff like this to get people out together. And the parents are coming. Now they're socializing. They're outside by the fire or they're just watching the kids. And the amount of response we're getting from people that, man, I got somewhere to go. I got somewhere to get outside and someone to talk to. And so it's been really good.
Amazing. People is donating constantly. Snacks for the kids also. We do up snack bags here. Water, hot chocolate. It's just been overwhelming since we opened it.
It's not just our community. It's people, as far as 50 and 60 kilometers away are coming here to skate and play hockey. And it's not just the young people. It's the older people as well, right? And to see the progress. There's kids that were here 3 weeks ago who never had skates on before, and now they could skate circles around older people. Right? It's good to see, and that's what it's all about.
2 people dead in 2 months in the Happy Valley Goose Bay cold. But what's being done to stop it from happening again? I'm Ariana Kelland, and I'll have that story on Here and Now.
More COVID restrictions have eased today, Peter. Let's do a little recap. What's changed today?
The biggest change is around capacity limits. So this is places like restaurants and gyms. Instead of being half capacity, they're going up to 75%. The bigger change, though, is going to come next week. That's when the border controls. So the forms you have to fill out at the border, those are all going to disappear. So some big changes ahead.
All right. Well, many parts of the country have a provincial holiday today, including on the East Coast, which is why we're about to welcome viewers from other Atlantic provinces.
Yeah, they get a holiday, we don't.
Yeah.
In just a few moments, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and PEI will be joining us, and we'll be incorporating some of their local stories and weather into the remainder of tonight's newscast.
Yes, so don't go anywhere. A special Atlantic-wide Here and Now begins right now.
This is CBC Here and Now.
We're definitely a community in mourning. This is a tragic, unspeakable event that has happened here.
A family of 4 is dead after a fire on Nova Scotia's southern shore.
Police say the fire is not suspicious, but an investigation into the cause is continuing.
One of them being able to watch me in person is it's much specialer than over back at home and over the TV.
Fans are back in the stands for the first time in months in Charlottetown as COVID restrictions eased.
The Charlottetown Islanders say tickets are already completely sold out.
Next system on the way, special weather statement and snowfall warnings already in effect.
Good evening and welcome to a special Atlantic-wide edition of Here and Now.
We'd like to welcome viewers from Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Prince Edward Island who will be joining us for the remainder of the show since it's a provincial holiday for them.
And of course, there's still more news to cover out of Newfoundland and Labrador, but we begin in Nova Scotia.
Yes, that's where a fatal house fire has devastated a small community. A 33-year-old woman and 3 children died in that fire on the province's south shore. 2 others escaped and were taken to hospital. The CBC's Haley Ryan reports.
Kaylee Savory is being remembered as a bright light and devoted mom to 2 boys. Harley was 11 years old and Hendrix was 8. All 3 died on Saturday in a house fire in Auburndale, just outside Bridgewater.
We're definitely a community in mourning. This is a tragic, unspeakable event that has happened here. And I don't ever recall such an event in the past at all. The community is trying to come together to support everyone. I want to extend my sincerest condolences to the family and friends, and my deepest respect to the firefighters and all the emergency first responders that was on scene.
Several local fire departments responded early Saturday morning, but the bungalow was already engulfed in flames when crews arrived. It took several hours to get the fire under control. Savory's fiancé and his 4-year-old son managed to escape before help arrived. His 9-year-old daughter was also there. She was the 4th victim of the fire. Chris Kennedy is the fire services coordinator for the municipality. He says these situations are something you train for, but hope you never see.
We all have children and grandchildren, and we're all parents, so it hits home pretty hard. And yeah, so we'll get through it as a group.
He says crews will get together this week to talk about what happened and get professional support. Savory's brother says she had been in one of the happiest times of her life. She was engaged and had just started a new job as a teaching assistant at Blue Nose Academy in Lunenburg, where her sons went. The girl who died went to Greenfield Elementary, another South Shore school. Both schools are bringing in grief counselors on Tuesday when students come back after the long weekend. Fundraisers have been set up to help the family. One has already brought in more than $37,000. Mayor Carolyn Bolivar-Getson says she's seen an outpouring of grief and support from the tight-knit community.
I think that's who we are, and that's how we usually do, stand up behind one another and help them out. And that's what we will continue to do.
The boy who survived is recovering at home, but his father, Savory's fiancé, was still in hospital as of Sunday. The The medical examiner is investigating, and the causes of death have not yet been released. The provincial fire marshal's office is investigating the cause of the fire. At this point, police say there is no evidence of foul play. Haley Ryan, CBC News, Halifax.
Well, engineers are assessing several washouts in Cape Breton. A stretch of the Cabot Trail has been closed to vehicles for 3 days. It's not yet clear when it will reopen. Heavy rain falling on frozen ground caused a washout on North Mountain on Friday. Crews are still removing debris, and an engineer is on site today assessing the damage. The only detour option is all the way around the Cabot Trail, which is about a 4-hour drive. It's the second time in several months a section of the Cabot Trail has been closed for repairs. A storm in November washed out the highway between Neils Harbor and Ingonish. Well, on PEI, provincial politicians are preparing to head back to the legislature tomorrow, and they'll now have the option to attend the Legislative Assembly remotely. It will be the first time a hybrid model will be allowed during the sitting. It's being done to accommodate those in isolation, as was the case for PEI's Premier Dennis King last week after one of his children's close contacts tested positive for COVID-19. The public gallery will be open, but masks are mandatory.
Well, it's an exciting night for some hockey players from Charlottetown. For the first time in months, several players will have family in the stands during a home game. Sheehan Desjardins has that story.
The stands are empty, but won't be for long. PEI recently lifted a number of COVID-19 restrictions. That means half of the seats can be filled for tonight's game.
My mom and my girlfriend and my sister are going to be there, and so are my grandparents, so it's pretty special for them to come.
They will be sitting here, Section 21, Row I. Ben Boyd says his family attended most of his games growing up, but haven't been able to recently because of the health protocols.
Oh, it's awesome. It's great to have them there, and just like the feeling of them being able to watch me in person is it's much specialer than over back at home and over the TV.
The Boyds won't be the only family in the stands today. The Charlottetown Islanders say tickets are completely sold out, and each player has snagged 2.
You know, everything the players have been through the last couple of years, you know, their parents and families have been a big part of helping them through the tough times, I guess you'd say. So the parents really want to be here and support their kids when they weren't able to be here last year at all. So it's nice to have them back, and it's good that they can be here.
As the crowd arrives, not every parent was able to make it. Mario Cormier has been watching his son Lucas play since he was little. Although he won't be in the stands tonight, he hopes to catch a game soon.
Yes, it'll be much easier for the families. Yeah, we needed to test all the time, so it might stop some people from going. But now it's hopefully it stays open and we get to go more often to games.
The Charlottetown Islanders are currently leading the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. Tonight, they face off against the Acadie Bathurst Titan. And for family and friends who couldn't make the game tonight, the organization says tickets are still available for their next home game on Wednesday. Sheehan Desjardins, CBC News, Charlottetown.
The stories of St. Lawrence, told by one of the town's own.
An earthquake had happened offshore.
Sunday at 11:30 and Monday at 7.
This weather update is brought to you by the NL 511 app. Know before you go. Check road conditions, highway cameras, and the provincial plow tracker with the NL 511 app.
A lot of Atlantic Canada is going to be affected by this next big storm that's coming in, Ashley. Give us an idea, which areas are going to see the rain and which areas are going to see the snow?
Well, at this point, it's looking like mainly New Brunswick, particularly northern New Brunswick, is where we're going to see the majority of that snow, and that will fall through the day tomorrow. But let's take a look at where we were sitting today, because temperatures were well above zero for a good portion of Atlantic Canada today. 5 degrees in Fredericton, 8 degrees in Halifax. That was the hot spot. And then we've got that temperature in and around 2 degrees for St. John's. Much colder though up across Labrador. Minus 17 was the daytime high for you in Lab City. So there's a look at that colder air thanks to a ridge of high pressure. We're seeing that air sink further south, hanging on to some of that milder air across Nova Scotia. But that is going to change as we head through the night tonight. It'll be fairly quiet, but then in behind that, that system there over Colorado is what we're watching, and that is going to move through Ontario and then eventually head towards Atlantic Canada as we head through the day tomorrow. Now, Environment Canada has already issued snowfall warnings for northwestern New Brunswick, as well as a number of special weather statements. And this is because there is the potential to see some freezing rain. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do see some freezing rain warnings with this one. So to time this out, over the next 24 hours, fairly quiet to start, at least through the night tonight. We'll just see increasing cloud. And then as we head through the first half of tomorrow morning, that's when we should start to see that snow develop for central and northern New Brunswick. Fairly light in the way of accumulation, but you're still looking at that intensifying as the day goes on. Now, as far as Nova Scotia goes, generally looking at a cloudy day, that chance of some flurries and or showers particularly in the evening and afternoon, because that's when some of that warmer air will move in and change things over to showers. Now, further east, you're looking at some accumulation, potentially 2 to about 4 centimeters of snow by Tuesday evening, and then eventually changing over to rain. Temperatures tomorrow should be between 4 and about -2 across Nova Scotia. And then as far as New Brunswick goes, hovering around the 0 degree mark further south, and then much colder for northern areas. Bathurst, Edmundston, all looking at your temperatures into the minus double digits through the day. Now, a cold day across Newfoundland and Labrador as well. Minus single digits for St. John's, with those windy conditions sticking around. Northwesterlies between 30 to 50 kilometers per hour. The further west you go, you're looking at your temperatures in the minus double digits, and then up across Labrador as well. Quiet, but minus 20s through the day. Now, taking a look at what's going to happen tomorrow night into Wednesday morning, this is when the bulk of the system's going to move in. We're going to start to see some of that warmer air move in. That line, that pink line there through New Brunswick, is the potential to see some freezing rain. This is also when those accumulations are going to start to intensify, or rather snowfall rates are going to intensify for northern areas of New Brunswick. Now, in that snowfall warning area, you're looking at somewhere between 15 to 25 centimeters of snow. And then we start talking about the potential for some freezing rain. There is some in that darker pink, the potential to see somewhere between 10 to 15 millimeters of freezing rain by the time we get into Wednesday morning. Now, after that, south of that, most of this should fall as rain, which will be heavy at times, also accompanied by some pretty strong wind gusts out of the south or southwest, somewhere between 70 to 80 kilometers per hour. Now, as we head through the day on Wednesday, it'll move through fairly quickly. Likely going to see some lingering freezing rain potential for northern New Brunswick. But overall, the meat and the potatoes of the storm heads towards Newfoundland and Labrador, where we're going to see the strong winds and rain through the day on Wednesday. Again, we're looking at rainfall amounts somewhere between 20 to 40 millimeters across the board. Temperatures also quite warm, anywhere from 6 to 10 degrees right across the board. However, we're going to hang on to those colder temperatures up across Labrador into the minus teens. And then Thursday, finally starting to quiet down, I should say, up across most of Atlantic Canada, with the temperatures back down well below zero, and then hanging on to some of that milder air for St. John's, hovering around 5 degrees on Thursday.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, a retired Nova Scotia man has found a way for people to enjoy the province's most iconic landmark right in their own backyard. Peggys Cove replicas first started as a hobby for Vito Forgione.
Now, the 64-year-old is turning his woodworking skills into a business. Emma Davey paid him a visit at his workshop in Chester.
Peggys Cove Replicas is a one-man operation. Here in Vito Forgione's backyard workshop, he recreates the iconic lighthouse, from a small nightlight to a solar-powered lawn ornament, and others in between.
I'm doing the lighthouses like I've never done lighthouses before.
In the late 90s, he worked as a rock patroller at Peggys Cove, keeping people from getting too close to the sea. That meant a lot of time bracing the elements, heavy wind and rainstorms.
I basically saw that lighthouse every day. And I said to the lighthouse, "You're going to pay me back for this."
Now, each of his pieces comes with its own warning sign.
Okay, now it's going to go better.
When the pandemic came, so did new challenges.
I was so scared. I thought, that's it, I've lost everything now. And it basically went the other way. I go, wow, one after another. Three orders a week was a norm. We were getting 3 orders a day. I'm going, what the hell is going on?
People stuck at home looked to Forgione to bring some light into their lives.
They say it's unreal. The picture does not do it justice. It's also something, every time I see the reaction, I get the encouragement.
But he makes more than just lighthouses. There's patio furniture as well as enormous wishing wells. His latest project is an ambitious one, a fully functional windmill matching the colors of the Peggys Cove Lighthouse.
Finally going to have a windmill out there. And as soon as I do, I know there's going to be customers calling in to get a windmill.
The retired 64-year-old says he's happy to have something to keep him busy because he's never been one for sitting down.
I can't really foresee myself not doing what I'm doing until I can't do it anymore.
Emma Davey, CBC News, Chester.
I'm the coordinator of the RPM Challenge. The RPM Challenge is a creative challenge to anybody to record music in the month of February. And it's any length, any level of experience, anywhere, any genre, anything you can think of. We first brought the RPM Challenge to Newfoundland in 2008, and we got 22 albums that year, and we thought that was a lot. And then over the years, it's grown and grown to the point where we receive over 100 records from Newfoundland and Labrador every single year. There are people all over the world that are participating, including people in Iran, Qatar, all over Europe, all over the States. To participate, you go to rpmchallenge.com. There's a sign-up form. You can read more about it, and you'll be signed up.
Well, Russian President Vladimir Putin has signed a decree recognizing the independence of two rebel-controlled regions of Ukraine. It comes amid worries that Moscow is looking for a pretext to invade the neighboring country.
Уважаемые граждане России, дорогие друзья.
Well, this is seen as an excuse for Putin to openly send Russian troops over the international border. For weeks now, Moscow has amassed more than 150,000 soldiers along three sides of Ukraine and conducted multiple military drills. Meanwhile, Ukrainian authorities are accusing Russia of ramping up its provocations. Many Western leaders have long accused Putin of trying to fabricate a regional crisis to justify an attack. As the U.S. and NATO allies push for diplomacy, President Joe Biden has signaled that he's open to meet with Putin if Russia doesn't invade its neighbor.
Well, a university library reopened in Iraq over the weekend, not after being closed by pandemic measures, but after years of renovation following the war with ISIS rebels. Today, the University of Mosul's Central Library looks like any other. 4 years ago, though, it looked very different. Mosul was devastated. Many of the library's volumes were lost, some burned deliberately by ISIS. Many volunteered to assist the renovation. The library still possesses rare historical manuscripts, some dating from the Ottoman Empire. Efforts to replace the lost material continue. According to Buckingham Palace, the Queen has tested positive for COVID-19. Queen Elizabeth is reportedly experiencing mild cold-like symptoms, but the palace says she's expected to continue light duties at Windsor Castle over the coming week. Prince Charles, her heir, has tested positive on February 10th. He had met with his mother 2 days before. A number of people at Windsor Castle have also tested positive. The Queen is 95 years old and has had some recent health problems. She is triple vaccinated.
A childhood cancer survivor who took inspiration from Terry Fox has died at the age of 56. Steve Fagno competed a run across Canada in May 1985 when he was 18 years old. He raised millions of dollars for cancer research and was named to the Order of Canada later that year. But Fagno struggled with mental health and addictions issues. He was convicted of several criminal charges, and his membership in the Order of Canada was revoked in 2009. Fagno suffered from traumatic brain injury following an attack in 2015. He died Friday morning in Burnaby, BC. While Canadians have seen prices soar on pretty much everything during the pandemic, and some experts warn that higher increases are here to stay. In a new CBC series called Priced Out, the high cost of everything, you'll hear about what to expect in terms of rising costs and what we can do about it. Peter Armstrong has a preview.
Right across the country, we're beginning to see the economy open up again. Those restrictions are lifting and people are finally, slowly, getting their lives back to normal. But as COVID's icy grip finally thaws out, we are beginning to assess the damage and the long-term implications of these past couple of years. And top of mind on the economy, at least, is inflation. We've seen it hit multi-decade highs, eating into people's purchasing power and causing real concerns about what we do and how we react. The issue is Inflation will probably drop over the course of this next year, but even once it does, the cost of everything has been permanently raised. We're not going to see a drop in the prices of housing or heating costs or gadgets or groceries. So the question becomes, what do we do about it? The Bank of Canada is poised to act. It's telegraphed that it's prepared to raise interest rates. That's been the policy response to inflation for decades now, that if you raise interest rates, you'll cool the economy and drag down inflation with it. But what's causing inflation right now? Snarled supply chains, the global price of oil. Will a slight increase in borrowing costs here in Canada actually change any of those things? And if not, what do we do? We spoke to some economists who say what we need to do is try to find ways of injecting money back into consumers' pockets because they're the ones feeling the brunt of this, and the issue is really one of affordability. So let's, bring in childcare programs. Let's subsidize the cost of transit. Let's subsidize the cost of post-secondary education. Find ways to inject money back into people's pockets. But whatever you do and whatever response we see next week from the Bank of Canada, this issue isn't going anywhere fast. So it's probably the biggest policy discussion around the economy that this country is going to have, not just in these weeks and months to come, but potentially years. Peter Armstrong, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, CBC's new series, Priced Out, The High Cost of Everything, begins tonight on The National, 10 p.m. local time on CBC Television, 10:30 in most of Labrador. You can also catch it on GEM.
Yes, and that about does it for Here and Now tonight. Once again, thanks to our viewers in New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and Prince Edward Island for joining us. Your regular supper hour program will return tomorrow after the holiday. And Here and Now in Newfoundland and Labrador will return tomorrow at its normal time, which is nice to be back after being a half-hour show at 7:30 during the Olympics. So speaking of back to normal, Peter, some restrictions, COVID restrictions are being lifted. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, when we look ahead, we've got another week with the current measures, and then they're going to lift the border restrictions. So the way that's going to end up working is when you arrive back in Newfoundland and Labrador, you won't have to fill out a form, you won't have anyone at the border. You can still pick up some rapid tests, but those are now going to be optional instead of being required. So it's a big change. This will be the first time in 2 years that we haven't had any sort of border restrictions in place. But if you're wondering about coming to the province without being vaccinated, well, you're still going to need a vaccine to get on a plane. So those are federal rules.
Great recap. Thank you so much, Peter, and thank you everyone for joining.